the second day. My name is Mati, I'm from Medica, and today we'll be talking a little bit about blended ROAS and segmentation. So hope you all had a great first day, and we're gonna kick it off. So a bit of housekeeping before, because Medica has been on the market only for 2 years, but the team experience is over 20 years in gaming, and basically the two previous startups that were acquired by King and Apple, where we had built and developed the solutions for segmentations and CRM, as well as the whole personalization topic. And I feel like that has been a buzzword for the whole day yesterday. There was a lot of talk about personalization, about hybrid casual, and I think we want to talk a little bit more today of what we've learned in our previous companies that were acquired by King and Apple, and how we now reapply those learnings and try to use them in the mobile gaming. So, a word of caution, this will be a business talk. It is directed to mobile gaming developers, and we'll talk about achieving the growth, how the blended ROAS and the hybrid monetization actually goes hand in hand, and how, of course, I need to say that, how AI will also help to make it a bit more automated. So it's the right time to leave if you're not interested into that. Other than that, we can continue. Perfect. So, quick recap, because I mean you've probably seen that a lot, especially around the AppLovin, Google has blended ROAS, hybrid monetization. I mean, you know, the holy grail of many studios that are trying to achieve that. In a short recap, basically, if you think about the blended ROAS, it's taking your all revenue from different revenue sources. It could be EAPs, could be ads, subscription. I mean, if you think about battle passes, of course, there are different monetization types, and then divided by your total ad spend, right? That also takes into consideration your all the paid sources, but also the organic uplift or the K factor, as some of the studios are measuring that. And then we have the hybrid monetization. Hybrid monetization, in a nutshell, is nothing else than balancing in-app purchase revenue and ads revenue. So in short, basically we're talking about the same things. We're basically two sides of the same coin, because one would not be available without the other, and vice versa. Okay, so balancing in-app purchases and ads. This is a massive topic, and also a disclaimer, we don't have all the answers. I'll share a couple of real life use cases from our clients, and basically maybe that could be relevant to your games, studios, or the studios you work with. The reason why everyone is so excited about the hybrid monetization and the blended ROAS is very simple. Is to monetize and market more broadly, to unlock incremental audiences, really, if you think about it. Because the audiences that you normally monetize with the in-app purchases, right, have a very different lifetime value curves than the one of ads. I mean, think about the behaviors of your users. And in the end, in today's gaming world, I mean, I don't need to tell you that, you probably all know it, it's not the easiest market when it comes to actually discoverability and making a ROAS positive game. So that's why we do it. If you think about it, that's actually the real life example of a game from 2018. In the beginning, it was 75% monetized by in-app purchases, and you can see it very much plateaued, right? They sprinkled an ads, but because there wasn't a really considerate strategy around the ads, they just put them in different placements. The ads revenue, it didn't scale. The ads revenue is in blue, in-app purchase revenue is in red. So you might begin to wonder what happened in July 2024. Basically, they start crafting the additional ad placements in a very considerate manner of where those ads should be placed for the different players. And thanks to that, using the blended ROAS scaling strategy. That was mainly AppLovin and Google back then. But you could see what's very interesting is that it's not only ads revenue that actually grew. You can see that in-app purchase revenue played a massive role in actually increasing this the revenue. And obviously, that's a very hand-picked example. It's not like that every single game will follow this trend, but it's definitely showing what's possible if you apply blended ROAS with a certain coordination in mind. Let me go back to the scaling example, and probably most of you know it, but it's really nice to show it in the onion example. So let's say you want to build a game in a specific genre, okay? Let's assume it's what? 300 billion users in this genre. Then you create a specific art, design, a theme, and then the total addressable market of the players you can market this game is getting smaller, right? And then you think about that if you are really good in monetization with the in-app purchases, you get what? 5%, 3% of the conversion rate? And that's basically the revenue size. Yes, very stable revenue, very strong revenue, but that's the revenue size that you get. If you then combine it with ads, and vice versa, by the way, this becomes much bigger. So that's what we're talking here about when we're thinking about the incremental audiences that can be unlocked by the hybrid monetization. And when working and talking to different studios, we see kind of this example, that the grass is always greener, right? From one side, you see all the in-app purchase monetized studios thinking, okay, ads is very interesting because we have those 95% of the players that will never purchase anything. Let's go there. And then all the ad-funded studios are thinking, okay, but our revenue is way less sustainable when you look at the LTV curves. And also, it can completely break the game. So the grass is always greener. And what I think is also very important to say here, the skills that you need to actually make such a game, to actually run such a studio, are very different. If you think about two extreme spectrums of hyper-casual game versus a Forex or a mid-core game, those are very different skills. From the product, monetization, and UA probably is the most similar one. Okay, but what do we make? Basically, what is all, why are we talking about this? Is because we want more scalability. I mean, that's what's kind of the main theme I'm hearing for the last year and a half. And really, what we see more and more is the studios that are winning from it as part of our clients is not only adding ads to your in-app purchase game, or just maybe adding some in-app purchases to your normally hyper-casual / casual games. It actually requires the UA and product monetization to work really tightly together to kind of create this journey for a specific user, for a specific profile, and that's where we start touching upon the personalization. What's also very important, and I'm very curious about your experience here, is around the data integration. Like, do you use two different data sets to actually compare different KPIs? What are the KPIs of the user acquisition managers compared to the ad monetization managers? Very often, they're not necessarily aligned. And I see it quite a lot with the legacy studio, and I'm fully aware it's not easy to change. But this joint effort comes all together to actually finding, acquiring, and monetizing these 10x new audiences that you can unlock with the hybrid monetization. So this is those holy grail, right? We want to get into this hybrid monetization that's not only around the revenues, but also about very tight focus and then work together between the UA and product. Okay, sounds simple. So how we can get there? Unfortunately, or fortunately, it all starts with a great game. You can have the best strategies, but without this, without having a game that has a good retention curve and basically have a good hooks for different economies, it's extremely hard to even build the harmonization. And I'm not sure you know it way better than I do, but that's something that you should really focus on. But let's assume you've went through this small hurdle, of course, quote unquote small, created a great game. Now, you need to basically create opportunities for your players, and that could be the ad monetized players that will never ever buy something, the ones in the middle that have the certain purchases, and also the ones that actually will very much focus on the in-app purchase revenues. And then you need to segment those. Actually, a quick show of hands. Who of you use any segmentation inside your games or the games you're working with? Okay. Okay, that's less than I thought, but I think it's also very important to touch upon that. Because the big question in hybrid monetization is, how do I decide when to show an ad or an in-app purchase to a specific user? And that's a $1 million question for some of the mobile games and studios for a simple reason. It's very easy to break the in-app purchase economy by, for example, being too generous with the rewarded ads. Why should I purchase if I'm getting so much hard currency if watching rewarded ads? Also, it's the vice versa. If you create a too aggressive in-app purchase game economy, you'll be losing a lot of players and leaving them outside of the, basically leaving them outside of your monetization, because they will just can't progress further. And obviously, especially in the games that are also relying on the community and basically on the scale, it will be very hard to create a scalable game if you cut out the players that would normally be a massive revenue driver just watching the ads. And that's where the segmentation comes in. And if there's one thing around the talk, I think that's something you can take with. So I want to kind of go through the past, the present, and what I think it might be the future. I'd like to think that the present is the contextual multi-arm bandit, but it all depends on different studio maturity and the focus. Okay, let's start with the past, so the manual segmentation. Manual segmentation is obviously still a very powerful tool, and basically, if you think about it, it's usually a static or a rule-based segmentation. So think about it. You can group players through certain factors, verticals, so things like device, country, purchases, player behavior inside the game, and then show them a specific treatment, right? I mean, that's pretty simple, except for one thing. It doesn't scale. That's our experience when we worked with Candy Crush at King. At a certain point, there was a 15,000 user segments. Obviously, again, there was a billion users, but 15,000 user segments, manual ones. Nobody knows what was happening. Imagine what's happening when basically the monetization manager was going on holidays. You couldn't point where the user is. And trust me, in mobile gaming, it's very easy to run this problem. If you create a hit and you start scaling up, the manual segmentation might become a problem. If someone's not convinced, let me show you a very simple example. Let's build a payer segment together. A very simple one. Let's say, for example, take the iOS operating system, and let's do a classic, simple country segmentation. We have the US and tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 countries. Now, we might think, okay, from those players in the US, I want to have a good proxy if that's a wealthy user or not. A great proxy for that is the device memory. I mean, the newer the iPhone, they usually have the bigger the memory inside the device. So you want to segment those players in a high and low memory. Okay, but then, of course, I want to know if the user paid or not. You have a payer, a non-payer here. But hey, if you think about the payer, I will value differently a payer that purchased something 3 days ago versus someone that purchased something a year ago. So we want to know when the purchase happened. And then we also want to know the value of this payment, okay? So we have different price points around the in-app purchase. If you take this extremely simple segmentation, we're not even touching the player behavior inside the game here, right? And apply those branches to all the nodes to the tree, you have over 100 segments that the user can go. It is becoming an extremely complex problem, and with a lot of data. So what's great for big data sets and pretty structured behavior? Obviously, it's machine learning, or AI, if you want to use the buzzword. But here we'll be talking mainly about the machine learnings. This also, basically the static approach also thinks that you can use, that the player behavior remains constant, which is absolutely not true. Players are constantly evolving, and if you face it, I mean, I have a good example from the sister world of e-commerce. They also start to understand the rules. I have a good friend. She exploited one of the e-commerces, basically knowing that if she would add the product to the basket and abandon it, she will get a remarketing email with the 50% off. And that was a very static rule. And every product that she bought was the same way. So it's very easy to exploit also those rules, and it's not necessarily a great thing. So what we are doing in Metica, but also a lot of other companies are doing in-house and on the market, is actually applying the machine learning to solve those complex problems. Sorry. Then we'll move actually to the present, which for us is the contextual multi-arm bandit. And per se, the concept is not new, because big companies, and our team has worked on it at Apple. Basically, if you use Apple and you have any subscription management, that was built also using the contextual multi-arm bandit. But also Google Ads, Facebook, Netflix, YouTube. I mean, many of those companies that are operating on a huge amount of data are actually using this type of solution to solve the problem, which means creating more impact with removing all those dials, and that's how we strongly believe it also works for the segmentation. And basically I can tell you a little bit more about the idea. The idea is that you need to rethink the design approach. We're not thinking about the decision trees anymore, we're actually thinking about the three building blocks. So first, think about the treatments. Treatments could be kind of testing the maximum and minimum of your player. So it could be the price points, could be dynamic difficulty. But you, as a game designer or monetization manager, you can think about the treatments that you want to show to the different players. Then, any model needs a success metric to optimize against. And here, a word of caution, we made those mistakes. For example, with one of our customers, they wanted to test out dynamic difficulty. And we thought, for the model, that's perfect. Let's use number of levels played, right? I mean, let's see if basically numbers of levels played will affect the difficulty. So model did exactly this. They maximized the numbers of levels played by serving super simple levels. The players hated it, obviously, because you play a very simple level all the time, you're not being engaged at all. So think about the success metric. Usually it's quite connected to the LTV or revenue. And then there's a context. Context is a very important piece here, because when you think about the context, it actually describes your player behavior, but doesn't necessarily also takes into consideration the fact that the player behavior can be evolving. And that's how it looks like. So in the beginning, the model will test out all the different variants. So here we have actually 4 variants. And then over time, they will serve it depending on the player context to a specific player. Yes, obviously the statistics works the same. At a certain point, probably you will see 2 variants that take over, and that's the right time to test a different variant, to add more variants. So it's kind of similar to if you, run creatives on Facebook. At one point, a certain creative will take most of the spend, and that's absolutely fine. But that's the time when you should add a different variant there. Okay. Those are the real-life results of one of our clients. In this specific, so basically we have the test and the holdout group. So the holdout group is seeing the one-size-fits-all treatment. In this specific experiment, what we did, we basically, our customer said, okay, Matti, we want to get more in-app purchase revenue, so move the revenue from ads into in-app purchases in a hybrid metric. It's a hybrid monetized game. How we did it, we created a success metric for the model that premiums EAP revenue by 120% and ads revenue by 100%. So over time, what we see, it was plus 26% movement towards the EAP revenue, ads revenue decreased, but most importantly, from the first assignment was day 0, in 3 weeks, it was a 9% additional lift, but also 20,000 incremental revenue that was generated through the personalization. Obviously, it's a very small example on a quite small game. It was 80,000 daily active users, but it only shows you the power of personalization as you provide more data to the statistics. And then there's a question that sometimes I get saying, okay, but do my players really differ? It's a great question, because how would you know that? So, as well, part of the screenshots from our platform, in this specific example, we were testing out the interstitial frequency. So, how often do you show the interstitial? It's the baseline was 30 seconds, you have 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and 180 seconds. And what I'm saying here is the blue dots actually is the UA context. So what is the user acquisition source that this user came from? You could see that just by slicing the data on this side, we see, I think it was Moloko, Ablovin, and Google, but the players have a completely different behavior and completely different preference when it comes to interstitials, just thinking about where they're coming from. So that's a very important piece on working UA and product hand in hand, because if you add to this other context, device type, user trends normalized, it becomes a huge myriad of different behaviors and personalized treatments. So yes, players are usually very different depending on a different context, and that's why a static segmentation doesn't work. Okay, we covered the present, what's available now as the statistical techniques. My take, what could be the future on it, and disclaimer, that's probably someone's trying this out, but it's not available, at least from what I know, or working well from what I know. So it could be around the whole topic of agentic AI, and that very well could be true. So imagine that the game team, actually yesterday at the panel someone said, I would love to see an app that will tell me what type of monetization I should apply for a specific user. So let's say you have a game team and that has a certain idea of, okay, what kind of a personalization and segmentation I want to make. Right now, you need to apply it in the game and change it, but I can totally see the future when maybe with, let's call it Alice AI, maybe with the agentic AI, you can actually describe what you're trying to achieve, as you do right now with ChatGPT, and that could be dynamically and automatically updated inside the game, inside the product, and having this closed loop between the UA and product, where basically the AI agents becomes a part of the team. Obviously, we don't want to create a future like in Wall-E movie where humans just becomes very lazy and just doomed for the eternal boredom. I think, as with any improvements in this field, we'll just be able to leave more of the monkey work of kind of creating those decision trees by hand and managing that, to actually more of the higher level strategic thinking. And you know, the history of technology shows us that is usually the truth. If you think about the famous ATM and bank teller example, and the number of employees in the bank, after ATM were introduced, the number of employees in the bank just increased, but their scope of work completely changed. Okay, I'm coming to an end. Two more slides from my end, and don't try to personalize everything. I mean, you know it better than I do. Creating a game is also a form of an art, although mobile gaming is heavily reliant on data, but it is a form of an art. Don't try to personalize everything. Some things should not be personalized. And left as it is, there's a huge, immense value in creating great games that are basically a certain size fits all. And there are things that are actually non-invasive to the players. Bitfloors is a good example of that when it comes to monetization. But I think it's important to have this fine line of what should be personalized and what shouldn't. So, kind of quick takeaway and basically what we're seeing is working with our clients is, if you think, okay, we want to implement some automation and machine learning concepts into smart monetization. Once you align the product, monetization, and UA to work towards the common goal, there are a couple of strategies and then tactics, as you can see. For example, using the UA source context to start the early funnel optimization. Which rewards to give for different reward videos? Should I be more generous because this player will never purchase anything? Should I be less generous because this player actually has all the signals to become a payer? Interstitial frequency. I mean, some of us have a much bigger tolerance to ads. Some of us maybe will be like, okay, I can see maximum one interstitial every 2 minutes, because otherwise I'll churn. Bitfloor is obviously a huge topic, and tailoring the onboarding to boost the UA. A couple of use cases, but it's really about thinking outside of the box and thinking what could be actually applicable to your games. Great. That was it. Thank you very much. And let me know if there are any questions. Cool, I think you have 2 minutes, so if there's a question, I'm happy to take that. Other than that, you can find me here, roaming around.